Shalom Aleichem. This will be a third part of a tribute to Reb Yoel ben Reb Kahan, Reb Yoel Kahan, who passed away So I would like to share a few more thoughts. Reb Yoel once told me, I asked him, who do you think is the closest person to the Rebbe? And I went on to say, is this Maskir the closest? Is this Shamish the closest? Is this Askin the closest? Is this Shliach the closest? And Reb Yoel was mevatul the question. He refuted the question without answering, but just making a facial gesture, a hand gesture, like, ridiculous. And I got it. By Reb Yoel, there was no such a thing as close or far. Every chassid who is a chassid and wants to be a chassid of the Rebbe was as close as this biggest shliach and the closest secretary and the best shamish. Makes no difference. Another question I asked him once. It seems like some of the mimerim of the Sefer Mimerim Melukit, it seems like you took mimerim that were a page or two and you made them to 10 pages and you prepared them. And the Rebbe edited them and they came out in the Rebbe's mimer. And Reb Yoel there too told me, I've asked certain Greise Versteher in Chassidus, and they said the way I prepared the mimer for the Rebbe, based on what the Rebbe said, is punkt azoi. It's exactly what the Rebbe meant. How can I argue with him? How can I argue with him? I don't understand Chassidus like him. What's the point? And then he went on to say, the point is, the Rebbe told me this. The Rebbe told me, was klarer als besser. The more clear it is, the better it is. That's the way I should prepare a hanocha. I should prepare a mimer. And I live with that dictum all my life. I say this, Rabbi Sai, because the teacher of Chassidus Chabad for Lubavitchers and for everyone else is Reb Yoel Kahan. No one else comes to his piatis. I'm talking now about in his teaching of Chassidus, in showing us how to understand something. The brain surgery that he spoke about, that he did on us Bocherim when we were learning Chassidus with him. Reb Yoel was a Yid who was selfless. He had no agenda. He didn't come from that place. His father was Reb Yoel Kahan, a man who was total Chassidishkeit. You touched him and you became saturated with Chassidishkeit. And this is his son. Some argue this chassid and that chassid of a previous generation, of today's generation, the Deira Shvi, the drinking of Mashpia and farbrengens. Oh, this is Rebbe, this is Chassidus. Rabbi Sai, what we saw and learned my 6 years as a bocher with Reb Yoel and then later as a younger man, and thousands of others who are today the shluchim, heads of states, rabbonim, mashpiim, amcha, business people, are all his talmidim. As a friend of mine said, someone once said, kuloi alibe de Reb Yoel, quoting a Lashon HaGemara, kuloi alibe, everyone follows this and this opinion. Kuloi alibe de Reb Yoel. You can't get away from it. And if you think you can, you're lying to yourself. You're fooling yourself. And the way he taught us to be Chassidim, to emulate the Rebbe and Chassidim, and to be Torah people, emes of people is genuine and unique, and no one comes to his piatas, no one comes to his ankles, no one. I don't care how much mashka they drink, and how long they can farbreng all night, and what they can scream, and what they can say, and what their pedigree is. It's bupkis. So I'm being emphatic a little bit, and I know that because this needs to come home and be drilled home. That not in the past and not in the present, and if I may say so, not in the future. And that's why we need to focus on these things that he left us to teach our children, grandchildren, talmidim, talmidos, and the future generation. And some might say, well, I'm making him into a Rebbe. I'm not making him into a Rebbe. He was the right chassid. He was the Rebbe's chassid. I remember farbrengens in Ocean Parkway, 76, 77, 78, Yutas Kislev night, Leil Yutas Kislev, the Rebbe farbreng the next night. He would farbreng with us, Beis Medrash Bachrim, from 8 to 11. Then officially we had to go to sleep. Most people left. My friends, a few of my friends and myself stayed all night. And I'm not talking about the 2, 3 in the morning. I'm talking about the 5, 6, 7 in the morning, where he walked out after much l'chaim, pretty shikr, but a gehalten cup. He never became cuckoo. He never said ridiculous things. And there was a theme throughout the night from 11 till 6, 7 in the morning. I remember one farbreng, and he spoke about the word that when the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim said that Mashiach will come, so it's in the gazettes, and it'll be in the newspapers. He spoke about that idea. Another idea he spoke about one Yutas Kislev was that Mashiach wird sein am Snagid. So of course he said, "Wie kann das sein?" And he spent all night explaining that. Rabbi say, find me someone else who can talk about one nekuda, and without, anecdotes and misholim and stories, which is beautiful and gewaldig. But of course he used that to make his point. And during the farbrengens he cried, and he didn't cry because, like Chassidim would say, some beis akisei treren, you know what I'm saying? Crocodile tears. He cried from the heart. And he spoke about his kashrus. And not just his kashrus, Rebbe shliach, Rebbe shliach, of course shlichus. But he didn't make that into an agenda. He spoke about being a yid, about being a chassid. So we Bachrim were left with a desire to be better in Avodas Hashem, and to learn more, and to daven better, and to have more Yerushalayim, and to go to the farbrengens, and go to a mincha, and to a mimer with the Rebbe, etc. So as we go through the Shiva, and as we go through the Shloshim, and we have these very powerful days of remembering things that Reb Yoel said and taught, it's a gold mine. It's a gold mine. Everyone should take a little time, and if you had a relationship with him, a pnimis dika relationship, a deep inner relationship, bring back those memories. What did he say? The lines. I'll give you another example. I once asked him about the Elichaim Altois writes. It's printed, I think, in Chelik Tezayin or Tezvav of the Frierdiker Rebbe Zigris. One of about when the Frierdiker Rebbe went to America. So he writes to the Rebbe a whole report of the he says the Eidim, the Ramash, how he conducted himself. It's an amazing reshima that every bacher and every younger man, every Lubavitcher must read and learn. And I did that, and I was blown away. So I went over to Reb Yoel and I said, Zokmir, tell me, what's for a Yid is there Elichaim Altes given? What type of Jew was he? Not that he knew him. I don't think he knew him. He knew his son. He knew his nephew and all that. Pinyaltois. So he said, gewann a gute Freund. He was a good friend of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Now, one will say, oh, he wasn't a Mekusher, he wasn't, Right, Rabbi say, if you're a good friend, you're a deep Mekusher. You're a friend. You follow? Elchaim Altois and the Altois family were friends of the Rabbeim. Friendship. Now, who are we to say we're friends to our Rebbe? I mean, it's ridiculous. But Reb Yoel said it with depth. In other words, what I went crazy about in that letter, the description of how Elchaim Altois describes the Rebbe as a young man, our Rebbe, and how he was amazed by him, and how he took time in saying Aleinu, he says, which Reb Yoel once told me, and maybe repeated farbrengens, that in order to l'sakin olam b'malchus shin daled yud, in order to bring down the Shechina lemata, it takes time, and maybe it takes as much time as En Kelikenu and the Shir Shal Yom together. Because here you have to bring it down lamata, das nimmt Zeit. He once told me such a word. And he said in Tzem beim Rebbe. That's what he told me, that by the Rebbe, Aleinu took longer than the other parts. So when he says that Elchaim Altois is a guter Freund, a good friend, it's deep. It's insightful. Many times he told me short vertlach, these buzzwords or buzz lines that encapsulated a gold mine, a treasure. So Rabbi say, we need to keep the fire going. And like I said in another video, the lebendigkeit, the liveliness, the bren, the koch. Reb Yoel was always kochen sich something. Whatever it is, it's gekocht in them. Because he was passionate about it. So the Rebbe should help him. The kids around the Sheikh offer, who beseicham, with Mashiach's arrival, mit Taka zeichet sein, to Gula Shleima, Bekarev Mamish.